that there's a very large percentage of buildings in the United States that are old and need not just potentially significant upgrade, but just need to be rebuilt. But I think that there's also some very valuable buildings in urban cores where you can have the right type of development, where those buildings should be kept and converted into residential buildings. And they're an important part of the urban fabric in the built environment in those locations. And there's great upside for doing projects like that. So, I mean, I really encourage people to look at projects on a case-by-case basis and really dig into the underwriting and look at who's doing them and what their goals and objectives are before jumping into an investment.
Welcome to the Cashflow Fight Club podcast. I'm Mike Deaton.
And I'm Lygia Deaton. Together as co-hosts in life, business, and this podcast, we're matching up the heavyweights of cash flow creation to see who reigns supreme.
We do this so you can discover the best way for you to generate transformational cash flow and pursue the life of your dreams. So whether you're a side hustle seeker, full-time entrepreneur, or just looking to create job-quitting cash flow like we did, hit subscribe and grab your ringside seat for the most entertaining and informative investing show on the airwaves. Let's get in the arena.
Let's do it. In our matchup today, we're focused on a topic that has been and still is a major issue in the US, housing. That's currently a large supply gap nationwide for housing in key markets and in general. And that fact, coupled with and tied to many economic factors, are also contributing to an affordability gap.
Our guests today are bringing two different business and investment models to help address some of those problems. We touch on tapping into the needs of unique markets, the importance of design in better returns, as well as the ins and outs of each business model. It's a West Coast meets East Coast, conversion project meets development in our heavyweight housing showdown. So let's get to it and bring on our guests. Fighting out of New York City, our East Coast challenger comes to us with over 20 years of real estate experience in the New York City area. His ventures have ranged from single-family renovations on up to larger multifamily assets. Skilled with a background in architecture, fine arts, and design, he's turning his talents to ground-up condominium development projects. Please welcome Aaron, the Big Apple architect, Yassin. And our second West Coast challenger fights out of Washington State. He's been a lifetime entrepreneur, starting out as a youngster with his twin brother and officially buying his first business and residential house at the age of 19. Ever the hustler, he's been knocked down and risen back up many times throughout his life, coming back from the dot-com bubble, housing crash of 2008, and his own personal battle with a brain tumor. He's currently engaged in converting vacant office space into much desired housing. Please welcome John, the Survivor Laine.
Fantastic. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Delighted to be here. Thank you for having us. I appreciate it a lot.
And I know normally you guys come to us West Coast, East Coast. I think we're going to bill this as a West Coast, East Coast matchup. But today you both happen to be on the West Coast. So Aaron, thanks for jumping in while you're traveling. And yeah, we look forward to having a great matchup here. This is going to be fun. Just quick summary. We typically do these in 3 rounds. So the first round, we'll get to know you guys both a little bit more on a personal level, what got you into where you are. Round 2, we get into the meat of your business models. And then round 3, we'll go a little deeper and kind of pick through maybe some more technical questions or tricky points or whatever. Then Lygia and I'll pick a winner and we'll close. We typically close with a little bit of gratitude. So any shout outs that you want to give. So sounds like a good plan. Let's get into it with round 1. Aaron, why don't you kick us off, man? Tell us a little bit about your personal background, high level, and how you got into real estate and where you are today.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to start just with where I'm at now and then jump backwards a little bit. So currently I'm working doing a ground up condominium development in Brooklyn, very specifically. So to back up from there, my background is actually in fine art. I'm an artist by education and by passion. And there's an interesting kind of segue into real estate. from there, a lot of artists are always looking for a space to have a studio, right? And myself, like some other artists that I know, have figured out that if you can buy a space to put your studio in, you're going to be in a much better position, because typically artists are often drivers in neighborhoods, and the artists move in and then they have to move out because they get priced out. Uh, so because they make the neighborhoods cool, right? and
Yeah,
then
starving
and then
artist
that
for a
drives the
reason.
price
Okay.
up, right? And if they didn't get in with an acquisition, then they might have to move to a different location and kind of do the same thing all over again. So early on, I also had some encouragement from my father and from some family to look at property. And also based on my background, I worked for a general contractor when I was 17. I've always worked doing trade work as well. So I have a lot of construction background. In my artistic practice has always had a strong focus in architecture as well. So architecture and design and fine art are really kind of at the forefront of my background, and that kind of coupled with this a need for a job and a need for studio space kind of led me in certain directions. And then, having this affliction of being very handy made some of that possible as well. So I got into purchasing some properties fairly early on in my 20s, and I was doing I have had various jobs during that time. Since then, one of them, the longest one of which, was working as a studio director for a fine art and design studio. And in that context, I also worked on some pretty significant public art projects and private commissions, and also worked for some retail clients as well, including Saks Fifth Avenue and Tiffany and Company. So I had an opportunity there to work with some pretty top level architects and interior designers, domestically as well as internationally, and played a pivotal role in those projects and the success of those projects. So it's kind of given me a certain foundation to kind of think through things and work from. And it's since about 2018, I've been really working independently, first working with a partner doing architectural design work. And then I've kind of integrated that work into originating development projects. And this also picks up during that period. I've been working in real estate over the same period since 2000, really. And as part of that work, while I was doing other kind of W-2 or freelance work, I did do development work as well on my own. So trying to jump into that full time since 2018.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the fact that you have a passion, obviously, and have developed a skill in art and all of that, and then being able to weave it into a profession, right, and to pull from different threads of construction background and real estate and all of that. That's great. And that's all been in the New York City Northeast area. Is that correct?
State standpoint, yes. All of my real estate work has been in the New York City area. But some of those projects that I worked on have been, really. I've actually done work in. I think I counted at some point 26 different states as well as several continents. So it's been all over the place. So I've been able to interface with people all over the world doing manufacturing and construction work.
That's awesome. Yeah, I too have had a little bit of that luxury, and it's eye-opening to get to see other places and other methods and ideas and designs. Really, really mind-broadening in that way.
Absolutely. And just to see how people build things and just to interface with them, it makes a huge difference.
It's great.
How about you, John? Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to your journey today.
Thank you. It's a little weird. I've been thinking. I've been kind of talking about this for a bit. I bought my first house at 19. Let's back up. My parents lost our family home in foreclosure back in '86, right? So I was 16 years old. My family lost their house in a foreclosure. I ended up buying my first house at 19, just because I was hell bent on having financial security. Like I watched my parents lose everything, and I was not going to let that happen. So I bought my first
So this was a house intended to be your personal residence, not an investment or anything like that, right? Yeah. Okay.
first home, just my own home, and then from that I ended up moving to Portland and taking that and bought another house. 30, 29, 28 years old. Ended up with a golf ball sized brain tumor. So I got into real estate the hard way, right? Ended up getting really, really sick and being forced to either make a lot of money fast or die. Like those are the two choices. I had a 93% fatality expectation for my illness. And so it was either go make a hell of a lot of money fast or die. Those are the two options. And
And was that urge to make money or that necessity to make money driven by medical bills? Was that kind of what that is? Yeah.
100, but when it was all said and done, it was $300,000 worth of medical bills on my side and $700,000 on the insurance company.
Mhm.
But we ended up losing my house, right? I went through foreclosure. I got super pissed off, right? My house was worth 250. The bank sold it at 175, right? $70,000, 75,000 of equity gone in an afternoon. And when I was sick, I all I could do was read. I was not allowed to walk. I was not allowed to do anything, just bed rest for 18 months. So I I'm good at math and I'm good at reading. And so I built this framework of what I call compassionate capitalism, buying distressed properties, people who are in foreclosure, stay in the house, retain most of the equity, rebuild your financial security, lower the monthly payments. Like that was the four pillars of compassionate capitalism. And that I did that from 2001 to 2005. And we did $56 million in that period, right? We were buying pretty much a week in that process. And after the market cooled, right? Prices are going up, interest rates are amazing. Nobody needed foreclosure bailout. So I transitioned into a lot of fix and flips, a lot of single family res. And then ultimately, I went into a 13-story apartment building and converting it to condos, right? So I've got this legacy history of from one to another to another. I'm agnostic as far as the business model. I'm very, very good at figuring out what the next economic thing is. And I'm usually a first mover advantage. And right now it's office buildings that are vacant for 40 months and lots of opportunity. I mean, the building that we're buying was originally $47 million and now it's 19, right? So that's kind of, I'm really, really good at just the basic math of this business.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like definitely there's a thread there, and you're also leaning on your strengths. And with that, maybe why don't we jump into round two, since you've kind of teased exactly the business / investment that you're working on right now, which is office to condo conversion. So taking commercial assets that have been used for office space, which are in a lot of distress right now, as you mentioned, and applying that into another niche that is in a supply shortage, being housing. So, yeah, it's a fascinating business model, certainly timely. Give us an overview of kind of what that's about, and from an investor's perspective, what some of the expectations are there in terms of investment amount, timing, returns, and stuff like that.
Sure. So you first got to understand that the market is gigantic, in the multi-trillions of dollars, right? There's tall buildings in every city in America that are sitting vacant. And through the 08, 09 crisis, 14, depending upon who you're talking to, 14 million 14 million homes were never built. So you have this massive scarcity on the single family res side and this massive oversupply on the office side. And so we're looking at buildings that we can purchase for literally 30, 40, 50 cents on the dollar because they're empty. The building that we're targeting has been empty for 40 months. It has zero effective value other than the sticks and bricks. And so we're able to walk in and purchase it for literally 40 cents on the dollar.
And a lot of this has been, a lot of this has been exacerbated by COVID, right? So a lot of people left the cities, moved out. They had the work from home acceleration and massive adoption, and people just haven't been coming back to the city environments. The urban landscape offices just aren't really getting the occupancy that they once had, and have been sitting, like you said, idle for quite a long time, and it just doesn't really show much sign of resuscitating, at least at the level that it was pre 2019 or 2020.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a building in Baltimore that just sold. It was a $66 million building, and it sold for $25 million just a couple of weeks ago. Like, this is happening throughout the United States because the demand for office space is so anemic right now that there's no, like, building owners are famously going bankrupt. You've heard about the deal in San Francisco, $779 million worth of assets just changed hands because the owners can't pay for them because there are no tenants in these buildings.
Yeah. Okay. So you're taking advantage of a great opportunity, being able to buy an asset for cents on the dollar, and then I guess your business plan. You can walk us through it a little bit at a general level, right? So the business plan is to take that undervalued asset, be able to add some value in terms of going in and renovating it, and some amount of demo, coming back in, turning that into apartment slash living units, and then walk us through a little bit about what that looks like. From obviously you're buying the asset, or you are able to buy an asset. I mean, what happens after that?
So it's in our specific situation, the seller has been trying to rent it for 3 years unsuccessfully. So about a year ago, he started the transition to go through the process of getting permits, getting architecturals, getting the MEP, mechanical engineering and plumbing, getting all the MEP architecturally put together, and going through the permit process. So in our particular situation, it's basically a ready-made package. The seller knows that there's no market for this building in its former position, so he has put in all of the soft costs to get it repositioned for this new opportunity. So we've been really fortunate from that. Other opportunities that we're looking at don't have the soft costs put together, so their sale price is literally 10 cents on the dollar.
Mm-hmm. And so the idea is then, just like I was describing, to take this office building, renovate it into some number of inhabitable units that you will then, at least in your business case, you plan to sell those assets individually, right? To single buyers that want to move back into the city, or that want a great location there in Washington.
Yeah. So this is Tacoma. It's we're converting it. It's 10 stories tall, 178,000 square feet. It's 2 blocks from the University of Washington. It's this called Museum Row. There's 4 different museums, all within a block, within 4 blocks of each other. We're a block away from the Sound Transit Center. So the location, that's what I love about this business model, is it's incredibly desirable from a livability standpoint, right? 91 walk score, the transit score is amazing. These buildings are in core central locations, and they're easy to do. The reconstruction, right? Let's say it's a $20 million cost. You're going to put 75 units into it, and that's going to be another $20 million. And then at the end of the day, it's $25 million of profit, right? And there's more profit than that, but that's the easy math.
Mm-hmm. So Lygia is sitting on a wad of cash right now. Assuming she wanted to invest in your project, what would that look like from, an investment min or average, kind of a hold period, and what type of returns should she expect?
So we're looking at $100,000 as a minimum investment. We're only dealing with accredited investors because that's important. Because it's a big project, we like bigger checks, and that just makes our lives easier.
Sure.
Education and sophistication. We're looking at 30 months in and out. If we started today, 30 months from now, you would get 100% return of capital. And then because of our business model, I talk about be the bank. Our business model will enable our investors to see a steady stream of cash flow for the next 30 years, or as long as they as long as they keep the mortgage, right? Where our business model is to take, in this case, $250,000 per unit of net profit and just have that as a second mortgage income stream. So it virtually doubles our profit.
Okay, nice. And I'm sorry, did you say the hold period on the initial investment was that
30 months return of capital?
30 months.
Yep. And you're looking at about a 258% equity multiple.
Okay, just 2.5x kind of a thing. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Right on.
Are you only looking to sell those condos after they're finished, or you are open to rent as well?
I'm personally not a big fan of being a landlord. Like I'm all about be the bank. If you can reposition your brain and your assets to play in the same sandbox as banks, I think you're a lot better off. So yes, they can be rented. There's a very big demand for high-end luxury rentals in this space. But my plan is to sell just because it's easier and I like the long-term cash flow without the landlord liabilities.
Yeah, maybe a phase 2 option, right? You come in, you invest in the syndication, get the conversion done, and then buy a unit and sublease it out into the market there.
So we have a 7-person team, including Aaron. We have a 7-person team on our GP stack. 2 of them are short-term rental professionals. And so the plan is for each of those people to buy a couple of units and turn them into SDRs and MTRs.
Beautiful. Okay, great. And they can self-fund themselves as a bank for their own purchase.
And they might get a bonus of, hey, you did a good job. Here's a unit.
Nice. Okay. Sign me up. All right, let's flip over to Aaron then. Aaron, why don't you give us a little bit of insight into your condominium development projects, kind of a similar thing. What's the ins and outs of the project, and then from an investor viewpoint?
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to start just with a very simplified description of what we're doing, make it easy to understand. So as I mentioned, we're doing ground up construction. So effectively, and we're working with a focus currently in Brooklyn, which is a fantastic market, and I can discuss a little bit more about that as well. So we're purchasing properties that will require demolition. There's a few cases where you can find vacant land, but New York City, it's few and far between. So we're typically looking for development sites that would have an existing building on the development site. that
Okay.
really are primarily their best and highest use is to demolish them effectively. And there's thousands of buildings, in my opinion, that fit that description based on existing condition and what, again, the highest and best use based on the location is. So we're purchasing these assets with the plan to demolish the buildings and then start from the foundation. There's excavation, foundation, and working up from there vertically. So it's 100% new construction. Starting below grade with full cellars. And from a business model standpoint, you've got the acquisition. Looking at the numbers, you've got the land acquisition. You've got then construction, hardened soft costs. And then, from there, you're going to, we're again, building condos. So we're exiting by selling all of the individual apartments. Typically, in our market, we're looking at from an acquisition standpoint. Of course, it's New York, so the numbers are higher, but the range for buildable square feet in New York it's going to be, on the very low end, you can get something where I wouldn't build condominiums, but you can buy development sites for around $100 price per square foot of buildable square feet. And then that can go up to 600-800, in key locations in Manhattan. Certainly it can even exceed that. Currently we've been acquiring around $200 price per square foot on the buildable site. And then the construction hard and soft together, it's going to run between, let's say, $400 and $500 price per square foot. So that takes us in all in somewhere between $600 and $700 for all costs. And then we're going to be selling at around $1,000 price per square foot. So that's a general encapsulation of the business structure and model, just on the numbers side. So it's kind of let's say if it's 1,000 on the exit and we're getting it at 600. So, let's say it's there's a 35% net from a timeline standpoint. We tend to look at around 30 months for a project cycle. And that can depend on, what's required for plan approval, what's required for demolition, and then, how many units you're building from an exit standpoint. Obviously, you're building a lot of units. It's going to take a little bit longer to sell.
Sure.
So there's a range. I would say, underwriting it at a small project, maybe at 24 months on the low end. And then for a larger project, let's say 36 months. So 2 to 3 years, full cycle. And then from an equity multiplier, we're looking for, we're syndicating, so we're looking for investments, passive investments for our LPs between 50,000 and up. We do take non-accredited investors potentially, depending on the project, and we're looking at a return over that 24 to 30 months of approximately, hopefully 60 to 70%. And that would be on an annualized basis. We're projecting in the around 23-24%. I'm hopeful with our newer project, we're going to hit something north of 25% on an annualized basis.
Beautiful.
They're pretty good returns.
Nice.
You definitely get higher returns. And now we can also talk about, I have a very strong thesis in our projects that, we are very design driven. I was discussing my background before. So I'm kind of the design director for Hive developers, and I'm really bringing that into the projects that we're doing. So we really try to lead with design in the projects that we're doing. And certainly that's part of the focus on doing ground up development work, is that, we have the opportunity to really be fully a part of that process. We're not dealing with something that's existing. There's certainly site conditions and zoning conditions, but outside of that, we have a lot of opportunity from a design standpoint to drive the process and really create all the value in the property through that, through building it and designing it and executing it as well as we can.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that? How does a good design drive up the value of your assets?
That is a fantastic question. Thank you very much for asking that. When you're looking at a project, there are multiple layers of design to consider. We throw that word out, and for the most part, people think about the kind of the aesthetics of the design. This is certainly a critical driver when thinking about the design. But when you're talking about architectural work as well, there's layers of design that go into the process, and it's everything that you're doing. It's the design of the mechanical systems, the electrical systems, the plumbing systems. All of these components of a project need to come together in the best way to create the overall success of the design for the building. And then layering on top of that, the aesthetics in the design process. When you're thinking through all of those layers, this is where you really get to an end product that's just a superior product, where you've really considered in a thoughtful way how everything is working together. So this is the experience, starting on the high level again with the kind of the aesthetics, the experience of the building itself. If you have just better designed floor plans, better designed spaces where, it's all thoughtfully considered, you just have a much, much better experience of the property itself. Just from entering the front door of the building, the public spaces, the experiences moving through the public spaces, and then opening the door to your apartment and what that experience feels like, and then the spaces in the apartment themselves. And then if you add onto that the actual performance of the building, so that's the layers of the mechanical and other electrical and plumbing systems, you can really create a much better building and a much better experience of the building, where in addition to it feeling better because the aesthetics have been considered, it's also a more comfortable building and a healthier building. And this is what you can get with thoughtful design.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of cases, it seems like design stops at the surface level, right? Like, especially in larger development projects, apartments and even condos and things like that, right? It's a veneer of sorts. You get in and you see, something that looks good, but then if you live in it for a little bit of time, things don't function very well, or, that kind of stuff. So that's nice to hear you driving deeper into the bones of the building itself and to make it functional and really not only aesthetically pleasing, but very functional. So
in that, the word that's often used, it maybe sounds a little bit more technical, but it's the performance of the building itself and how the building performs over time.
Yeah.
It makes sense that people would want to pay more money for a better design, for a more comfortable home or condo or place to live, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine at some point, I mean, definitely it depends on your market and where you are and all those kind of things as to the level of the finish out and all of that. Okay, that's good. I would say let's transition into more of a round 3 here, where we can dive a bit deeper into the ins and outs. And I know you guys have some thoughts, I think, on each other's business models that feel free to jump in as well. But Aaron, maybe we can stay with you and just kind of dig in a bit deeper into the business model. But some things investors look for are tax advantaged investments or things like that. Or there, I would assume there's some amount of depreciation that comes in with this type of investment.
You're not going to get, it's not a cash flowing asset. So for new development projects, there's not a depreciation component to it. So there's no checkbox there.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I didn't. Okay. And
so the primary driver, just from an investment standpoint for new development, is that the return profile is going to be higher, and also the project duration is going to be shorter. So you can get in, again, if it's 24 to 36 months, this is going to be a much shorter project cycle than typical kind of cash flowing value add multifamily,
right,
which could be 3 to 5 or 5 to 7 years. Yeah. You could do two of my projects in that time period, looking at a high equity multiplier. I mean, if we're doubling, if I'm looking at 60 to 70%, and let's say 24 to 30 months, take that out to 60 months, and double that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a much higher equity multiplier. So in that shorter project duration. So this is kind of the advantage of looking at the new development space and what you can get from an exit profile.
Yeah. Okay. And John, would that be similar on this office conversion as well? It's a kind of a similar concept.
Yes. So we do in our plan, we've got better tax treatments. Whereas, and I like Aaron. Aaron and I are friends, so it feels weird to like
drag him through the mud, man. Come on.
I know in Aaron's thing, right? Let's say the profits were the same. He's taking short-term capital gains. We're getting long-term capital gains. So that at the very least, if apples and apples were together, we get better tax treatment across the board because all of our profits are long-term capital gains.
Yeah.
That's the big piece that I think is valuable.
Yeah, that does give a nod there. Let's take your investment types a little more generically, like not looking at these specific projects, but there are other opportunities out there that I think could be capitalized on in these regards. Opportunity zones being one, and I don't know if either of you look specifically for qualified opportunity zone opportunities, and or I would imagine in the office conversion, you might have some legacy tax treatment for certain buildings or areas in terms of if they're in a historical area or things like that.
Yes, so we've looked at that pretty closely. We are in fact in a National Historic Registry district, right? So if we were keeping these as apartments long term, we could effectively collect $4 million in tax credits from the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're converting them to condos to sell, that doesn't actually impact us. And the same thing, we're also in an opportunity zone that also doesn't really impact us.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because you're looking, in order to take advantage of those, you need long-term hold solutions,
right?
Which may be an option, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not what you're looking at in this. That's what I was saying. In your specific business case, I know you're looking at a different thing, but there could be opportunities to structure it in such a way that it would do that if someone were looking to do a greenfield development project or something.
If the right person came to the right property, condo conversions as a hold strategy, 10-year hold for a opportunity zone, for example, that's a great strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the opportunity zones are fantastic. I think it's a great program. Certainly in our market, there are significant numbers of opportunity zones, but of course, to really get the best tax benefit from those, they're long-term holds. It's 5 to 7 years as a minimum threshold, and actually to receive full tax benefits, it's a 10 to 12 year window. So at the 10 to 12 year mark, you get you're sheltering capital that's likely from a gain on another asset. And at the 10 to 12 year mark, you pay no taxes on the funds that you've sheltered, plus no taxes on the gain. So it's a pretty long-term hold to actually receive that maximum benefit. But I mean, those are great. They can be great projects to do, and a terrific incentive for investors that are looking for sheltering, tax sheltering from that standpoint. And I could see definitely in our market, currently we're doing build to sell, but there's potential opportunities to do build to rent, particularly if there's other localized tax programs that become available. In New York City, they come and go, and currently there's not one that's one that we can take advantage of. But there may be something coming online in the next 12 to 24 months that would encourage rental projects, and many of those would likely be in qualified opportunity zones. So there's definitely possibilities there.
Okay. What about risks on either side of your projects? I mean, obviously you're both doing development to sell, and so it's dependent on a sell. happening or selling out? I mean, I can see that as being one fundamental type of risk, that things just don't sell. Market conditions change over the next 12 to 36 months that for whatever reason inhibit that. But that or other risks that you see in your or each other's business plan.
I mean, I'm happy to jump in there. I think from our development structure standpoint, the risks are actually getting the project moving forward. You've got risks for new development just on dealing with the site, dealing with the city, in mitigating some of those factors. Once you can get a project going, which is basically through demolition and foundation, and you're just building vertically, you've pretty much de-risked it. And then from there, we have a strong active market in New York City on the sales side, particularly right now. There's very high demand, even with higher interest rates, because there's such little supply. So, once you get past and also particularly if you're building a really good product, that tends to stand out. So once you get past the demolition and the foundation completed, the project is significantly de-risked. I think on the other side, on the office to condo conversion, it's a different type of product, and you don't have the opportunity to really design from the beginning. You're dealing with an existing floor plate layout, which sometimes works better than others for creating residential units. So there's, in my mind, there's not just risk there. There are many buildings, office buildings, that just literally cannot be converted. So it's kind of a case by case basis.
Sure.
So while I see great opportunity there, and with the right building, tremendous potential, I also see real significant risk that converting buildings that don't convert that successfully will place a lot of units on the market that may not compete well with other buildings that were specifically built as residential product.
Would you? So once you get green lighted and underway, would you, or do you plan to pre-sell?
Well, okay. So in New York City, what you can do is you need the TCO, that's a temporary certificate of occupancy, to actually have closings. So you can start the sales process of listing and showing the building at some point a few months ahead of when you expect to get the TCO. And
Okay.
ideally at a point when you have a unit that you can stage. And you can get into contract with potential buyers and get their deposits into escrow, but you need to wait till you get the TCO to actually have closings. But of course, the more units you can get under contract during that window, you're going to save time on your exit. So that's the typical approach. There's not a structure without having the TCO where you can actually have closings prior to that point. So that's the window that we typically work with in our market.
Okay. Yeah, it's got to be nearing completion, I guess, there or so. So, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
We'll market well ahead of that, though, to build interest and to build a list of potential buyers so that they're educated and aware of what we're doing, and get people excited about the building when it's ready to start showing.
Okay. And similar for you, John? Is that kind of similar?
Yeah, it is. There is slightly different nuance, right? So Aaron has the luxury of being able to draw what he wants to build. We have to work within a constrained environment, right? On the building we're looking at, there's one side of the building has no walls, 10 stories of a blank wall with no windows, for example. So it makes everything from ingress, egress, and occupancy visually, right? It makes it a lot more challenging from that perspective to build a nice building and to have windows, right? I'm a big fan of windows, but when you've got one wall that's completely not able to have windows, you're constrained on your design. So you do have some core construction risk, right? If on a lot of condo conversion buildings are basic 15 feet wide by 70 feet long, for example, some really just long, thin shoebox. And that's an ugly product that nobody really wants to live in. So you have to really design them carefully within the constraints of the building. Whereas Aaron has the luxury of designing the space. We don't really have that. So we definitely have some construction risk from that perspective, but I think that's mitigatable pretty easily.
Okay.
Well, let me answer one other question. The other risk in our side of the business is, are we picking the right location? Right? Because if you pick the wrong spot, I mean, that's real estate 101, location. But if we pick the wrong spot, we're sinking 20, $40 million. And I think in a model like Aaron, I mean, he's very specific about New York City. It's pretty hard to go wrong in New York City, right? Tacoma, Washington, that's a risk, right? Not as much. Our demographics are great because the average household in the Puget Sound region is $111,000 per household, right? So that the economic risk isn't as big, but that is definitely something you need to consider.
Makes sense.
This doesn't work in small tertiary markets.
Right. Yeah, definitely. You need to be picking the market for the right project. That certainly goes without saying, I guess. All right, let's kind of make a final push here. So let's say we've got $200K. We want to invest in a project. Give us kind of your 1-minute pitch for why we would pick your project. John, we can keep rolling with you.
I know Aaron's numbers. They're not as good as mine. Love you, bud. Our numbers are better. Our tax advantages are better. Truly. 256% equity multiple. You're looking at long-term capital gains instead of short-term capital gains. If it's the right investment for you, if you're looking for long-term cash flow, this is a better play.
Mm-hmm. And by long-term, you're pulling on the 30-year mortgage thread, or?
So our business model is 7 years, right? So we'll balloon out all of those loans at 7 years. So you're looking at, let's say in my example, $1,872 a month per property for the period of 84 months.
Okay, and that's the 2.58 equity multiple over that 7 years.
Yeah, so you're looking at our numbers are better, and they're all based on long-term capital gains. So win.
Gotcha. All right, Aaron.
Well, okay, they may be better. I think you need to really look at it carefully. They may be better, but on the other side of it, I have another pitch that's part of it, which is I feel very, very strongly that as a society we need to design and build better buildings that are more sustainable and more energy efficient, and I believe that we can do that and also provide very high returns for our investors, and that's really the approach that we're taking. And I think that that's a superior approach, because I think that it's not just that we can provide a great return for investors, but we can also provide something else that they're part of, that's part of our mission of what we are doing in our projects and what we're going to be doing more of in the future. And that's part of what you're getting when you partner with us on our new development projects.
Nice. Okay, so an environmental thread.
Let me jump in for just a second. Aaron, you're missing the biggest part. You get big checks. We do not. Right? Which is one of the things I love about your project is when you're done, and you get big checks, right? And that's a huge attribute.
Absolutely.
Like that, you get huge checks compared to us. We get small incremental, but you get big ones
Larger
when they're
checks
done.
that we're able to, that you're able to roll over into new projects. And again, in those new projects will be consistent with the mission as well. So there's a lot that's rolled into it in working with us. So, and we're driving that. It's our partnership team and our goals and objectives and the markets that we're looking at, and what our approach to what we're doing is all about.
Nice. Okay. I like that. A little financial, but a non-financial plug as well. So,
any final throwdown that you want to take between you two?
Oh, I mean, I think I can jump in and say that I think that there's terrific opportunity. These are kind of slightly nuanced in the asset class. A condo conversion from an office or warehouse building versus a new development. Because you're taking a shell and really converting the whole building, which is different than kind of a value-add multifamily. So it's a little bit of a nuanced difference, and I think that there's terrific opportunity in both, and there's different potential ways of exiting the projects, and I think both need to be looked at very carefully. And I've talked to John about this, in other contexts. I do believe that there's a very large percentage of buildings in the United States that are old and need not just potentially significant upgrade, but just need to be rebuilt. But I think that there's also some very valuable buildings in urban cores where you can have the right type of development, where those buildings should be kept and converted into residential buildings. And they're an important part of the urban fabric in the built environment in those locations. And there's great upside for doing projects like that. So, I mean, I really encourage people to look at projects on a case-by-case basis and really dig into the underwriting and look at who's doing them and what their goals and objectives are before jumping into an investment.
100% agree with you on that. Yes.
Yeah. There's a reason we're friends.
I can see that.
All right. Lidge and I are going to take a quick minute here just to confer and tally up our scorecards, and we'll come back with a decision. Just one sec. All right, guys. So we have battled it out amongst ourselves, and to your point, these are really nuanced investment types. They both generate great returns. They both take advantage of the opportunities within those submarkets, right? So you're in the East Coast. You're demoing buildings that are kind of non-functional anymore and building something up new from the ground and generating some great returns, short-term turns. And the West Coast, there, you're taking some office space and converting it. And I fully agree with you on each and every investment. Everybody really needs to dive into the details and understand generally who is running that investment. I mean, that's in our investment experience, we found that's really the most important critical factor is who's running it, because it does come down to execution, right? On paper, these all can look great and you can dress things up. But in this particular matchup, John, we're going to go with you in the office conversion project. You get the title, not only for the returns, but also tax benefits, which I think are great. There are obviously some risks and some limitations in the fact that you're renovating a space versus a ground up, which I really like the ability of Aaron, you being able to control everything. But for this matchup, we're going to go with John. Congratulations, Cashflow Fight Club champion on this particular matchup.
And a big shout out to Aaron, quoting you built the Tesla of houses. I think from an operator point of view, your business model is way more sexy and it's way more fulfilling. But from an investor's point of view, I like the tax benefits and the returns and all that John's business model brings.
Well, hey, we want to thank you both. I want to be mindful of your time. Like I said at the beginning, we do like to end with expressing some gratitude. So not only thank you both for sharing your time and your insights with us and our audience, but John, who's somebody that you'd like to give a shout out to that's helped you along your journey, and you can share a little thanks there?
Truly, Aaron.
Awesome.
No joke. Yeah, Aaron and I became friends about 6 months ago, and he's the guy I bounce a lot of stuff off of. Like, no joke, Aaron is definitely one of my favorite people on the planet.
That's beautiful. I love it. Thanks.
I love you too, John. So right back at you. I mean, there's a lot of people that I can name,
Sure.
but I think that, partners on multiple levels are really critical for success. So I would thank all of my partners, and that includes even people that aren't, let's say, general partners with me, but investors that believe in what we're doing and are willing to commit their hard-earned money to invest with us. And then also, other partners like consultants. So, some of the architects of record, MEPs, other engineers, my partner who's also our contractor, because we're vertically integrated, in some of the subs that he uses on our projects. And then, of course, other friends and family that have, supported my journey along the way. It's incredibly valuable.
Awesome. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much both for coming on the show, sharing your expertise and your insights. And for the listeners that are very encouraged and they want to take action and reach out to you, what is the best way to contact you? John, let's start with you.
John at
greencottagehomes.com.
Kind of hard to miss. That's the easiest way. We're always looking for investors. We're always looking for additional partners. I'm a pretty low key. This is who I am, right? There isn't any like veneer. I'm easy to get in touch with, easy to talk to.
Fantastic. How about you, Aaron?
I'm also very easy to find, but I would direct everyone to go to designdrivesvalue.com. Again, that's designdrivesvalue.com. And we've got an ebook there that you can download that talks about kind of our thesis and what we're doing. And we'd love to have you go and download that and then connect with us from there. And we're happy to jump on a call with anyone and talk more about what we're doing and how they can get involved.
Wonderful. Thanks again to you both. Appreciate you coming on the podcast, sharing everything. And we wish you both success in each other's ventures. So
fantastic.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you both.
Thank
Fantastic.
you.
For those of you tuning in, we thank you so much for investing your time with us on the Cashflow Fight Club podcast. We certainly had a blast, received some knockout insights, all while learning something new. And we hope you did too.
If you had fun, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you watch or listen.
Lygia and I truly believe the beauty of cash flow is having your money fight for you instead of you having to fight for money. So whether it's one of these methods or something else, we encourage you to dream big and take action. See you next time.